All right, so we're here with JB Gates. He is the Director of Technical Services and the Director of the AKG Academy.
You got it. Perfect.
Which is where we're at right now in the AKG Academy. So a nice little setup you have here, by the way.
Thank you.
But we'll show a little bit more of it, maybe some B-roll here in a minute for you. So let's talk about a little bit about what the Academy does. What do you offer?
Okay, so the AKG Academy is our training arm. So this is how we teach other locksmiths how to be more proficient at their trade. So we offer classes that range from the most entry-level, beginning basics of locksmith, all the way up to very advanced European key programming, module programming. The classes vary from beginner, intermediate, advanced, and even beyond advanced, not to sound egotistical. We have some really, really good instructors who teach material that is over me and also. So we have a lot of different classes.
What does a typical course look like? Is it all hands-on? Is some of it not? Or what is that?
So we try to get a good mix of hands-on and lecture in our classrooms. They usually start off with a portion of the class's lecture and then hands-on from there on out. We do go back and forth. We always leave a lot of room for question and answer. And then depending on the type of class, there's a good possibility that we will have vehicles present. And so we could actually do demonstrations, key programming, module configuration, whatever applies to the class on a real live vehicle. AKG owns several vehicles, and then other times we rent vehicles specifically for these purposes. So we find that sitting in the classroom for hours on end is not a conducive learning environment. Like, we want to get the material in front of the students, and then we want to get their hands into it and working on it.
Okay. Who are some of are you the only instructor or multiple instructors?
No, we have about, I think it's 11 or 12 instructors currently on the roster. And we have a couple of instructors that are bilingual, so we offer some classes in Spanish as well. But the experience of all the instructors varies. Not to be, like I said, arrogant or egotistical, but we have some instructors who have taught in multiple countries.
Oh, wow.
So we're talking about instructors with a lot of knowledge. Several of our instructors are, 40, 50-year veterans in this industry. So.
Wow. Yeah, those are we have a member on our team that's been 40 years in the industry, and it's been great to have him because he brings in all that old school kind of methods and the skills that kind of get lost,
Yeah, and they make, I hear the joke all the time, everything that's old becomes new again. But it really is true, We get caught up in the modern ways to do things and we forget that some of the traditional ways are just as good.
Right. I guess, how long has the Academy been operating?
So the Academy has been operating for about 2.5 years now, just over 2 years.
Okay.
And we teach classes at different intervals. It just sort of depends on the schedule because as AKG, we also teach at trade shows sometimes as well. So we could have classes here at our facility in Vernon Hills. We could have classes at whatever trade show we happen to be at. And in the past, we have traditionally taught classes at offsite locations, like one in New York, in Farmingdale, New York, which we plan on teaching offsite in 2023 in New York and somewhere on the West Coast, perhaps California. We haven't said it yet.
Okay. And the classes, what are some of the classes or courses that you offer?
So we have Intro to Automotive Locksmithing. We have Lishy is a very popular one, picking and decoding locks. We do a VVDI class. We have several Mercedes classes, whether we're talking about VVDI 2 or KR55, for the Sprinter remote flip keys like that. We also have a really popular Volkswagen Audi Group vehicle class, a really popular BMW class. Some of these classes will span over multiple days. And this year we're introducing quite a few more module programming classes. We took on a new instructor who their whole focus is just module programming. So we're adding a whole list of module programming classes this coming year and in the future as well.
All right. You guys do quite a bit, it seems like. And then I know you're going to bring in other classes, you said. So what other classes and resources, what other things are planned for the future? Anything that you can...
Well, so we're always taking input from the students. Every time that we teach a class, we provide our students with a survey sheet. And I think all the instructors do the same thing that I do, is I plead with these folks to give us true and accurate accounts of what they learned, what was good, what was bad. And I even tell the folks, hey, listen, if you need to give some feedback that's harsh and you feel like you don't want to put your name, don't. But give us the feedback nevertheless. So we have taken a lot of input from the students to create new classes. Some of the new classes on the horizon are a spin on an older class we had, a business ethics class. But we also want to talk about, have a class that, I don't want to call it marketing, but it would be basically how to structure your prices in a way that can allow you to grow your business. Well, we see a lot of the folks who come to our classes, they are making a living, but they're not really making any money. And it's because the pricing structure, and I'm not talking about price fixing or anything like this, but it's just, unless somebody has introduced you to a concept, sometimes you don't know that concept. So those are some of the classes we see coming.
Okay. And one more thing before we start asking what this stuff is here.
Of course.
What excites you most about the future of Key Innovations?
Well, I think the Academy is what's most exciting to me. Is I look forward to teaching anybody who is legitimately engaged in our trade, who is trying to be better. And I see a lot of folks come in who don't have a realistic expectation of what our trade actually is. And I want to help those folks to understand the trade so they can figure out if it is right for them and then figure out how to succeed and excel at it. So for me, Key Innovations, the most exciting part is this training branch of the Academy.
Yeah, it is pretty unique to your company. It's unique. I mean, most other suppliers don't have anything like this that I can think of.
There are a couple, but I think, to be fair, there are very good suppliers out there besides us. But I think we have a heavier emphasis on the education arm than some of the other vendors do.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, let's talk about what we got right here in front of us and go over some of these tools I guess you use during your training. Okay, so I guess tell me about what we're looking at here.
All right. So what we have, we're standing in front of one of the soldering stations that we have set up here. So when we teach hands-on soldering, we have stations for 16 folks. And at each station, we have a hot air rework station, we have a regular soldering station, and then we have miscellaneous items that you would need to solder, like flux paste and desolder wick and solder itself. And then we have some anti-static mats down here. And we have these benches set up to where we can have 2 students per bench. And then there is an opening on the other side of the partition. And the instructors can actually walk between all these stations and look and see what the students are doing, give them some instruction, some guidance, and show them, how to improve those skills. So we have all these stations set up the same.
Yeah, he's actually shooting through the opening.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right now, you're seeing it as if the instructor would see it if we were here. So Randall came up with that view. Real quick, what was that first item up there?
This is a hot air rework station. So what this device does is it produces a specific temperature of hot air and at the volume that you set it at. And what happens is you will take that hot air and you will disperse it around a certain component on the board that you're trying to remove, and it gets the solder to the melting point, and then you can remove the component off the board. Usually that is to take a memory device off a board in order to safely read it because it can't be read in circuit.
Gotcha. Okay. And then you had some. You wanted to show us the kits.
Sure, yeah. So we have a lot of different, I call them props, you can call them whatever they want, teaching aids. But in certain cases, especially if a customer comes to us and asks us to tailor a specific class to them, which we do. We have a course catalog of pre-made classes, but we also will take and make private classes for individuals or shops that request it. And in that case, a lot of times those needs are custom. And so we'll actually make custom props or teaching aids, if you will, to help, in that instruction. So let me show you one of those that we made. All right, so what we have here is we had a customer come to us and they asked us to give them some more fundamentals in automotive electronics. Like they wanted to understand more about 12 volts DC and ground and resistance. So when we tailored this class for them, it was in the wintertime. So we talked about the cars that we bring in that we use for class as well. At this particular time when we taught this class, it wasn't conducive to have the students huddle around a car in sub-zero weather. So what we did is we built this box, and it basically simulates the electronics in a simplified format in the vehicle. So the customer wanted to understand how to check for 12 volts, and so these would be your battery posts, your positive and your negative battery posts. They wanted to understand how to find if their OBD2 port had 12 volts and ground in it. They also wanted to understand how to check fuses, and they wanted to understand why a bad ground affects communications with vehicle programming. So we built up this little box for them. I can give you a quick demonstration just for example. I have just a common test light here. Clip it on, and we can check for voltage here. Let me get the clip just right here. All right, so now we can see the presence of 12 volts. So again, this customer wanted to understand how to check fuses in the car. So if you take your test light and you check for voltage on one side of the fuse, you have connection to the circuit. If you have no voltage on the other side of the fuse, then you have a blown fuse. So this is what one looks like that is blown. And then let me show you one here that's not blown. So then I showed the students that if I took a blown fuse and substituted it for a not blown fuse, now, if you see this LED came on, portion of the vehicle electronics now work. So I gave them this push button so they could see that these were effectively the emergency flashers in the vehicle. And then we simulated what it would be like if resistance on the ground circuit started to get more and more. So we would throw this lever here. And then as we increase the resistance, you notice that the flashing of the lights changes, they dim, and the pattern will even change until we get to the point where the ground is so bad the connection is no longer there. So I wanted to be able to simulate to them that certain amount of ground potential can affect the programming, and then if the ground potential gets worse, then no programming can occur at all. So we just built this to show them those in the convenience of the classroom where it was nice and warm. And we build these to suit whatever class we need. So we have folks in-house. This particular one I built, but other instructors build similar things like this to facilitate in their classes as well.
These are great training tools. Kind of reminds me of how we have an access control panel set up in the back room,
right,
where you can just take the mag lock swap panel, take readers, swap them, and test them out. This is kind of cool. We need to talk about creating one for an access control system.
Sure, yeah, we can work with you, no problem. And as a matter of fact, this customer actually asked us about building these for them so they could keep one on hand at the store in order to help refresh the memory and train new employees.
Yeah, exactly. That'd be a good idea. All right, you got some more stuff to show us?
Yeah, sure. I want to show you when you come to one of our classes some of the modules you might see in some hands-on demonstrations.
Okay, let's take a look at this.
What we have here is we have some of the modules that you might see when you come to one of our classes. So on this particular table, we have modules that are related to Volkswagen Audi Group vehicles. So we have some instrument clusters, as you can see. We have a comfort module, and we have some KESI modules. So depending on the class, we're going to teach, these modules could apply. Like if we were going to teach a class about how to take this cluster apart and use, say, like the super bag, for example, to put this cluster in service mode, to get the data out that we need to use to pre-code the key so that we can then program the key. So all these modules would apply to Volkswagen Audi Group vehicles. And we have other modules, so we just kind of have a subsection of those set out here for you to take a look at.
Okay. All right. And then what are these referred to? Like is there a name?
An instrument cluster.
Is that what it is? Because we hear a lot of, our level of, you're going into some things that we need to learn ourselves how to do. But we hear common terms we hear are ECU, BCM module, flash computers, things like that. What are those kind of? Is that referring to some of these things?
It could be. So it depends on the context. So ECU is technically electronic control unit. And so any module in the car, by definition, could be called ECU. Okay. But most of the time, when your customers say it, they're probably talking about an ECU in the sense of an engine control unit. So it can get a little bit confusing. And so there are different modules in the car, right? All of them can technically be ECUs, electronic computer units. So it depends what your customer means. They could mean the engine control unit. So that is something that we try to teach when we're through these classes. A lot of times people will say chip. And for me, I try to avoid the word chip, right? Because that could be a memory device on a board. It could be a transponder, so I try to call it a transponder or a memory device or an EEPROM instead of chip. So the terminology is something that we kind of do sometimes get maybe what you might call low marks. I get a lot of comments about sometimes we use too many acronyms and we don't explain them. So we try to give like a small little glossary or dictionary in the front of each one of the classes. These are what the acronyms that we're going to use today mean.
Gotcha. Okay.
We'll have some other modules for different types of vehicles, just for. And so what we have here is a couple of modules out of Saab vehicles. So we have a Saab Twice module and a Saab Sim. These are the real common ones that you're going to run into if you still have these vehicles in your market. This module is located under the driver's seat, and this module is located actually behind the steering wheel and behind the airbag module on the vehicle. Both of these we would need to get out for these Saab vehicles in all keys lost situations. So we would teach the student not only how to remove them by some pictures that we have, but also how to read the data from the module and program keys to the module to, generate keys for these vehicles and all keys lost.
Okay. What do we have here?
Next, these are some EISs, so electronic ignition switch, out of different Mercedes vehicles. So this would be out of a Sprinter. They call this one a W906. That's the designator for this module. And these could be out of other other Mercedes vehicles that take IR keys. These are going to be FBS3 vehicles. The process to get the key information is about the same if you're doing it by EEPROM. Actually, writing the key to them is a little bit different. But we would show you, again, how to take these out of the vehicle and also how to program keys to them. We also, in a lot of the segments about these modules, we talk about cloning the modules. So if I have this module and it's quote unquote bad, it doesn't perform well, but the data is still intact, we could read the data out of this module, write it into a donor module, and the car would not actually know the difference. So we detail that process in the classes.
Like a clone key.
Sure, like the cloning of the module. Instead of having to go to the dealer and have the cost of the dealer replacing the module. And once the car goes to the dealer, you as the locksmith have no opportunity to make money on it anymore. So we want to teach you how to be able to do these jobs in a way that you can, get your fair share of that work. And, the dealer can only do so much.
Okay. All right.
And on down, we have some modules. So here you see a subsection of modules that you might see in our BMW classes. We have ECU out of BMW here, engine control unit, like what you were talking about, more properly called the DME. That is the acronym that they use for these modules in the BMW vehicles. We see some EWS modules, and we have some CAS modules, different versions of CAS. CAS 2, CAS 3, CAS 1 hiding back here in the back. They all have their own tricks. So what's nice about these CAS modules is you can pretty much do most of these in the vehicle now, but we also like to show you how to do them out of the vehicle. There are specific reasons for that. Sometimes it's the security revision of a CAS 3 module that you don't want to do it in the car. You want to take it out, you want to read the data first as a backup, and then proceed. That way you don't have any trouble. Sometimes the modules have to come out of the cars. We want to show you the easy way and the hard way. We want you to know the hard way and then be able to do it the hard way if for some reason the easy way fails you. We want you to have a broad knowledge of how to do this. A lot of folks want to go straight to the easy way, and I don't think that's the best thing, right?
Right.
You need to know how to do it the hard way, do it the smart way, but also know how to do it the hard way too.
Right.
Then on down, we have a few more modules, and these are going to be out of Jaguar and Land Rover vehicles. So some old and new modules represented here. We have some older S-type Jaguar, and then we have KVM out of some newer Jaguars. And then we have a SEM module out of a Rover. So they share some architecture, the Jaguar, Land Rover, and Range Rover. So JLR is how we refer to it most of the time.
Okay. And that's I know you probably do quite a bit more, but
there's a lot more. This was just a way to introduce you to some of the modules that you'll see in some of our classes.
All right.
We talked about one instructor who is just coming on with us that teaches module programming. And when he comes to teach his classes, the last class he taught, he literally had 40 totes full of modules that he brought with him to the class. So some of these classes get very, very, very in-depth in the modules.
Yeah, all this stuff is, I would consider this advanced automotive for sure.
Yeah, most of this would probably be classes advanced, right?
Yeah, so we're getting to that point now. We've got the basics down, and now we need to kind of move up to that next. So we'll probably talk to you pretty soon about this academy, but thanks for breaking it all down for us. And we didn't even know it was available until a couple weeks, months ago when we started talking about this. But yeah, this is great for the industry. All right, well, JB, it was a pleasure going over everything with you and running through the academy and then everything that you do here. It was very enlightening, and we like what you're doing here. It's very impressive.
Thank you. I appreciate that very much. It means a lot.
And for our viewers out there, don't forget to follow us on Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, or on all the social media platforms. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button. And don't forget, we have 3 channels: Ujopreneur, Guardian Safe and Lock, and Guardian Approved. Thanks for tuning in. We appreciate the support.